Maurice here, K3Ejj. Guess we'll start out about a little history on these bushings that I'm making up to replace the TB3 bearing that most people have. This particular one came off of my tower after a couple of years of service and got roughed up here around the edges, a little difficult for it to turn. So I decided I would try to do something different. So I made up this bushing here that fit on the tower, made out of aluminum. It had the same footprint as the basic TB3 bearing did. And then I made this insert to go inside. And of course, you know, drop your mast down inside and everything. And the idea was if this piece ever went bad and wore, I could just basically take it out and put two halves in, you know, cut this one off this particular time and make two halves up like similar to this that would just slide down inside. And oh, by the way, this particular material is a die-cast nylon with polymers in it. It's UV proof and it has a couple other things that you can look up spec-wise that I have that makes it, it's made for making bushings and bearings and stuff and everything else. But anyhow, mine been on my tower. The original design is about 30 years. I've also made several of these for hams in the area, and they've been on their tower 20 years, 15 years, I think 10 years, and recently made some more of these bearings for some more of the local hams. And I also make it in an insert, two of them. The one has a taper top. I made it so that would fit down inside the taper top. And in there, the other one had a flat top, basically the same thing, and just put it down inside, bolted it in there, and away it went. And they've been working out very well. And mine, like I said, has not wore in X number in all those years. So how the rest of this came about was when I was down in Antigua this year, I was invited down to work a contest station down there that the locals here have, Victor 26 Bravo, and one down there I also made some of these bushings for the contest station down there. And one of the hams down there said that he liked what he saw, and he said, "Oh, my bearing went bad. It's too bad you don't make that in a split." I said, "Oh, I can do that." So that's how this all came about, was talking down there about it. I said, yeah, I can make it in a split. So what we do here is we start out with an ingot that this material comes in, two different sizes, and we turn the base piece here and drill and tap it. And then we turn the other piece and insert it inside here. And then we bolt these two pieces together like this. And then we take them over to the vertical cutoff saw and we part them this way. And then we turn the insert on the inside back to a configuration like this, or I should say the configuration like this here, where they're 90 degrees. Well, this one's cut yet. This one's cut 90 degrees. We use these shims here to reassemble the bearing with, and what that does is when the saw cuts the material out with the kerf on it, these are the same size as the material that's being removed, and this then puts this round again, makes it concentric round again. Then we take it back over to the lathe, bolt it up to a fixture similar to this, and then we finish, it's a rough bore like this, we then finish bore it to the size of the mast that's being used, and for it to fit inside. And what we have here is when you go ahead and assemble these on your tower, of course you have your existing bearing that's there. You would just push it up out of the way and lock it in place out of the way, putting this piece back in, and then assembling the halves, the four halves, you know, around the mast, using the shims here to get it concentric again, and then tighten it down, and then making sure that it turns freely on the mast before bolting it to the top of the tower again in it. And a couple things about that is depending on the type of mast that you're using, whether it's a 2-inch aluminum or steel, a chromoly, or a piece of galvanized pipe. If you have a piece of galvanized pipe, and when I machine these, I machine this 20 thousandths over. So if it's 2 inches, 2-inch 020 to give clearance in it. And with the galvanized, it's rough. You may have to take a file and file in that particular area some of the high spots off of the piece of galvanized. But if you have the regular standard chromoly 2-inch pipe and everything, this should just fit fine. I also find that if you do put it on and it turns a little bit rough, that when you put the 4 bolts in here and tighten it down, that'll make that flat again, because I turned it into a fixture like this and it's bolted down flat so that everything is consistent, parallel and perpendicular to everything. The other nice part about this particular design with this bushing, with this particular bearing, when you put your pipe in there, you see how loose that is, and you only have these 3 bolts that are supporting the mast here. And if they come loose, they can, eat away at the mast eventually, a little bit here and there. Whereas with this particular bushing, you've got 2 inches of support, actually 2.5 by 2 inches support, no matter which way the wind is blowing from. So that supports the mast a whole lot better than the TB3 bearing does. So I guess that about covers all of it. Any questions or anything? Of course, you got my number there and everything on it. But they've been in service for years for the local hams, and everybody seems to be very pleased with them.